Production is the key to the economic development of a country. Production can be agricultural, like cultivation of crops, or industrial, like manufacturing of goods. Over 70% of the population in India still lives in villages. People living in villages require various goods and services, many of which are produced locally. Thus, a village is a good place to understand various concepts related to production. We have chosen Palampur as the place to study production. Palampur could be in any part of India, from Jammu and Kashmir to Kerala, Gujarat or Assam. This imaginary place called Palampur represents a small village in India. Palampur is pretty well connected by road. A 3-kilometer-long all-weather road connects Palampur to a bigger neighboring village called Raiganj. From Raiganj, the same road continues to the nearest town of Shahpur. If you travel on the road from Shahpur to Palampur, you will find an amazing mix of transport. Dongas, bullock carts, bogies, motorcycles, jeeps, trucks and tractors are all used to transport people and goods on this road. Palampur is a small village inhabited by about 450 families. As in most villages in India, people in Palampur belong to many different castes. The 80 upper caste families in Palampur have pakka houses made of brick and cement plaster. If you visit them, you will find that some of these houses are quite large. The Dalits account for about 1/3 of the total population of Palampur. They live in a corner of the village in small houses made of mud and straw. Palampur is one of the increasing number of villages in India that have electricity. Most houses in Palampur have electricity connections. Electricity is also used to run tube wells in the fields and support local businesses. You may be surprised to know that in many villages in India, children walk several kilometers to reach their school. However, children in Palampur are lucky. Palampur has 2 primary schools and 1 high school where the children can study. The residents of Palampur also have access to good healthcare services. A government-run primary healthcare center and a private dispensary take care of the sick. So you see, Palampur is a pretty little village where people have good access to road connectivity, transport, education, electricity and healthcare services. Now let us take a look at the production activities that people in Palampur are engaged in. Like most villages in India, agriculture is the main occupation in Palampur. However, all farmers in Palampur are not equally fortunate. The 80 upper caste families own a majority of the cultivated land in Palampur. The other farmers either own small plots of land or are landless and work as laborers in the fields of the wealthy landowners. If you think all people in villages are farmers, you are not quite correct. Just like other villages in India, people in Palampur are engaged in several non-farming activities like shopkeeping, dairy, small-scale manufacturing, and transport services. All these production activities require natural resources like land and water, man-made resources like raw material, human effort and intelligence, and of course, money. In the subsequent modules, we will see how these resources are used to produce goods and services in Palampur. We use a number of goods and services every day. All these goods and services, from the food we eat, to the clothes we wear, and the appliances we use, and services like the bank we have an account in, and the transport we use to travel, are made available to us through production. Suppose you have a great idea about making a product or service required by people. Before you can put your idea into action, you will need to consider the factors required for its production. Whether you want to produce a crop, set up an office, or build a factory, you will need some place to do so. Thus, the first requirement for production is land. Land as a production factor also includes other natural resources like water, forests, and minerals found in the Earth's crust. The second requirement for production is labor or workforce. These are the people who do the different tasks involved in production. As is clear from the pictures, some tasks require hard manual labor, while others require higher education and technical skills. A production activity needs certain inputs to produce an output in the form of the desired goods and services. The third requirement for production is the inputs required for the different stages of production. These inputs are called physical capital or simply capital. The most important factor here is the entrepreneur, who is willing to risk his capital to start a production activity. Physical capital includes inputs like machinery and tools, money and raw material required for production. Some inputs like the building of a factory and the tools and machinery installed in it can be repeatedly used for production year after year. They do not get used up in production. Such inputs are called fixed capital. Note that fixed capital can vary from a simple plough used by a farmer to a sophisticated laptop computer. Inputs like raw material and the money used for buying it, paying electricity bills and the wages of workers, etc., get used up in the production activity. These inputs are called working capital and are required every time the production activity takes place. Let us take the example of a potter to understand the difference between working capital and fixed capital. The potter uses money to buy clay. The potter uses the clay to make pots. Money and clay get used up in the production of pots. Hence, these are his working capital. However, the potter's wheel can be used again and again to make pots. It does not get used up in the production of pots. Thus, it is his fixed capital. The fourth requirement of production is human capital. Human capital is the knowledge and effort that is put in to arrange for the other factors like land, labor, and physical capital to start the production of goods or services. Thus, land, labor, physical capital, and human capital are the four requirements or factors of a production activity. As is the case in most Indian villages, the main production activity in Palampur is farming. Around 75% of the working population in Palampur is engaged in farming. These include farmers and farm laborers. The welfare of the farming community is directly dependent on farm production. The more the production, the happier the farmers and farm laborers. So, how do we increase farm production? Well, there are two ways of doing it. One way to increase farm production is to increase the land area under cultivation. The other way to increase farm production is to adopt methods that allow you to grow more crops on the same land. Let us explore both these possibilities. Let us start with the possibility of increasing the land resource for cultivation. Land is a limited resource. We require land not just to grow crops, but to build houses, industries, public spaces, schools and hospitals, etc. Thus, it is difficult to increase the land area under cultivation. The only way to increase land under cultivation is to convert wastelands into cultivable land. However, wasteland is also limited, so this method can only increase the farmland marginally. What is true for Palampur is largely true for the whole of India. Observe in this graph how total land under cultivation in India increased only marginally between 1950 and 1970. Between 1970 and 2000, the land area under cultivation remained unchanged. Note that the land area in the table is mentioned in million hectares. Hectare is the standard unit of measuring land area and is equal to the area of a square having a side of 100 meters. Thus, 1 hectare is equal to 10,000 square meters. Since we cannot substantially increase the land area under cultivation, let us see how we can grow more crops on the same land to increase farm production. You can grow more crops on the same land in two ways. You can either adopt multiple cropping or use modern farming methods. Let us discuss both these ways in detail. Let us start with multiple cropping. Farmers in Palampur grow jawar and bajra during the monsoon or kharif season. These crops are used as cattle feed. After harvesting jawar and bajra, the farmers grow potato in their fields between October and December. After the potato harvest, the farmers sow wheat in the winter season, which they harvest before the monsoon the next year. A part of the land in Palampur is used to grow sugarcane that takes about a year to grow. Thus, in a period of 1 year, farmers in Palampur grow 3 crops on the same land. This method of growing 2 or more crops on the same land in a year is called multiple cropping. Farmers in Palampur can grow multiple crops in a year because they are not dependent on rains for irrigation. They have access to electric-powered tube wells to irrigate their fields.